It is Sunday evening, the eve of Memorial Day, and we are about to do episode 37 of the Auburn Experience podcast. We appreciate you joining us. We're about to get into it right now. War Eagle Auburn family and War Eagle E2C Network family, we appreciate you hopping in with us on a Sunday evening on a vacation-filled weekend, I'm sure for many of you. Austin and I extend our gratitude to those that paid the ultimate sacrifice so that we can have weekends like this to do a podcast and enjoy the freedom that we have. So for myself, Kyle, your host, and my co-host, Austin, welcome to the show, and thank you to our veterans. Yes, but are those who've paid the ultimate price.
Yes, absolutely. It's important to remember this weekend while we get a day off for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Austin's back in the saddle, folks. So we got him for another day. Mr. Father of Twins continues to be gracious and squeak out time for us. So glad to have you back, sir.
Yes, thank you. I hear one not so happy twin right now. So if you hear that coming through the mic, I apologize. But
yeah,
that is the soundtrack of my life these days.
I'm trying to see if I can hear it. I can't hear it. So you've got great soundproofing, I guess, of that. But here's the thing is your ears are so probably attuned to all that now. So even if it was on the quieter side, you're like, uh-oh.
A ticking time bomb.
So it shouldn't be that you thank, me or Austin for being here doing the show for you guys. You should be thanking Emily Scott for being gracious enough to allow him to stick away for about 30, 45 minutes with us on Sunday evenings. So we are continually appreciative of that. Drip Edits in the house. Angela Crotchfield's in the house. We got Devin here. Thank you guys so much for checking in with us. Go ahead and do that if you haven't. Please do make sure that you post where you're watching from and all that kind of stuff with a War Eagle. Would love for you to do that. Smash that like button. We're going to get the show started in about 3 minutes here as usual. If you've got any other some big things that you'd like for us to address that we're not going to talk about in the show, especially for Austin, since he usually has to run at the end of the show, go ahead and post those now. I will hang out with you for a few minutes afterward. But obviously, we're going to be talking a lot about the Auburn Regional and the historic nature behind that, Austin. We're going to be talking a lot about Buc-ee's and the social media crazes that Auburn got started this week, and some not so good topics about the former head coach. All of that is going to be included. So we've got a wide variety of things to discuss today.
That's what I was going to say. It's a wide variety of things happening, which is, not to be unexpected. And at the end of May, as the athletic and academics year is kind of wrapping up, but that's kind of what it might look like throughout the summer for us before we get back into the swing of things with fall. I'm sorry, I am completely confused and interested in what Devin's talking about by speaking of babies here.
Yeah. Is there something we need to know? I mean, like,
I'm not picking up on that if I'm supposed to be picking
I was about to say, like, is there something that I saw that in the comments too? And I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on here, but either way, we would love to get some feedback on that, because now I'm just like super intrigued by it all. Well, we hope the crying we don't hear is from the regional this weekend. I will go ahead and give you all a preview. I will be in town. Nice. I will be likely there for the entire. What?
How about that?
What? I'm assuming congratulations. Wow, that is awesome. Well, I would assume you didn't announce it like first here, but that would be kind of cool if that was. So awesome. We have another E2C and Auburn family member apparently coming. Devin, I need the deets in.
That's fantastic.
In the Patreon app. I need the details. When's all this happening, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing. I want to hear about all that kind of stuff. So congratulations. Awesome. Wow. Hopefully one day I'll be joining the camp soon too.
Wow, I did not expect to get that kind of news tonight.
I know
on our platform here. So
I know that's pretty incredible. But that's, hey, listen, I'm honored that we could definitely do that. What she says, she hasn't done it on social media net. Well, it's out there now. Honored. You're live right now. I mean,
I'm very honored.
So maybe we won't promote this part of the show just until we
Right.
know that it's like public out there. But very honored that you would do so. Well, I don't know how we like top that now on the show. I
No,
don't
there's
know how
no
you.
way.
Only thing we can do is just get the show started because we have got plenty to discuss. So, Austin, if you are ready, we will get things started.
I'm ready to go.
Final reminder for you folks. Most of you know the drill. Obviously, we won't be interacting a lot with you guys. Help us out in the chat if anybody gets confused with that. But I'll check in with you after the show too. But with that being said, 3, 2, 1. David Housel said it best: the whole of the Auburn experience. It is what we live, it is what we breathe, and it is what we are all about. At its core, it is all about our sports, about our culture, and yes, of course, about the Auburn family. And because it's about family, you have to have a member of that Auburn family here each and every week on episode 37. My good friend, your co host, and the reason you honestly all show up to this podcast each and every week, Mr. Austin Scott, back in the saddle. What is going on, sir?
War Eagle Kyle, you're far too kind, my friend, and I appreciate you having me on, and that we get to talk about the Auburn experience together for now 37 episodes. You would not believe, or maybe you would believe, that the number 37 is very hard to find in the Auburn world. It is not a popular number, and so 37. The only two I could find was our current number 37, who had some plays in the A-Day game, but I think is a walk-on, is Rod Elston.
Rod Elston. I believe it or not, I do know
Yeah.
that name. Yeah.
I think he had some A-Day plays either this year or last year. And then the other 37 that we might all remember, maybe not, is our Trevon Reed wore number 37 for his fallen teammate Ladarius Phillips back in the day. So, yeah, just not a whole lot of playmakers in the 37 over the Auburn history, but that's the best we could find.
And I guess we could, posthumously do it, Ladarius Phillips as well for that.
Well, yes.
That was kind of said without saying. So, Kyle, why'd you make it awkward? I continue to belabor the point. Anyway, so there you have it. He does his homework yet again and brings you the stuff that you wait for on the Auburn Experience podcast. What number or what player, what person are we connecting to this show? And we have found it in the ever so hard to find 37. So listen, this is where in the part of the show we normally kind of use this opportunity to bounce around and call it Auburn potpourri and talk about some minor things that maybe are just worth mentioning. And there are some things this week that are worth mentioning, but we've got, I think, a show of 3 different topics, all different varieties. And I like that. So we're going to spend what time we have left in this first segment focusing on one particular thing. I'm just going to warn you all, it's not a particularly fun topic in terms of just the spirit of it, but it's something that's worth discussing. We'll have some more interesting and fun topics coming up here in just a little bit. But obviously this week, if you were paying attention on social media, if you were paying attention to opinions being shared from one particular individual via a major site, and also those responding to it, former head coach of the Auburn Tigers, Brian Harsin, had an interview with ESPN this week come out and shared some insights about what happened, how he's doing now, all those things. You can now start to, if you weren't aware of all this, imagine how all this played out, especially on social media. Some people, I would say the majority of people, did not take it so well. And I completely understand that. And we'll maybe talk about some of that. So, Austin, I just guess we'd open the floor for you to talk about maybe some insights or anything that you might have about our former coach choosing to share his side of the story a little bit on this ESPN article and reactions to it.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw it come out, I did not read it right away. I was doing some other things, but could definitely expect what was coming from the article. Nothing against ESPN at all, but we know that
track record.
There's been a previous relationship with Coach Harsin and Chris Lowe and the ESPN. That's who he's used to kind of be his mouthpiece before, and kind of have his opinion out there. So I did not expect great things from it and then I actually got to read it. And not super surprised by a lot of what I read in there. just because, yeah, I think in this industry, a lot of these head coaches are very, and I'm going to say prideful, but I don't mean that in the negative term, but they're
Take
proud of
ownership.
what
Yeah.
the work they can do, and they're proud of their success. And it's hard to fail, even though you get a chunk of change if you fail more times than not. It's hard to fail in this industry, and it's hard to, be the focal point of when there's been such failure like that. Um, Brian Harson's tenure at Auburn was a failure. And I have no problem saying that.
It's 100% true.
And I think that he probably would recognize that deep down. I don't think that that's going to be an easy thing for him to say. And I think that we could debate all day long about why it was a failure and what caused it to be a failure. I think that it's easy to find blame on both sides, and I think that's probably accurate.
Look at you being diplomatic. I'm so proud of you.
Hey, it's early. It's all in all, it's time to move on.
It is.
And I'm going to say that from the Auburn side and his side.
Absolutely.
I mentioned that he got a chunk of change. He got a big bag from Auburn that he was contractually owed. I'm not saying that, he got a huge amount of cash for it. He mentioned in the article, and we've seen how he's been able to, on social media, he's been able to spend time with his family. He's been doing recruiting visits with his son. I'm not saying that
he went on recruiting visit. He went on recruiting visits this time. Sorry, I had to say it. I was being
dramatic.
I had to say it. It was just sitting out there. It was a softball that I just had to knock out of the park. Come on.
And so, I don't really see, other than he just felt like he needed to get it off his chest, why this piece needed to happen. But for whatever reason, he felt like he needed to say his last piece, and he did. For Auburn, it's time to move on. I feel like a lot of Auburn people have moved on of the fan base.
Yep.
Those in media circles, I don't think have moved on for whatever reason, but it's time to just cut it clean. He's back in Boise with a whole lot of money. Auburn is doing incredibly well on the recruiting trail for the first time in 3 years here. So I think it's just time to all go our separate ways, and we're good. But there was no reason for it, really, in my opinion. But in the same flip side, there's really no reason for some of the reactions that we've seen publicly to it. So
yeah. I fall somewhat with you. I read the article, and I agree with you. I think it's time to move on. So this is why we're talking about to put it to bed and move on. But it's worth talking about right now. The reaction I got when I first read it, I honestly had no reaction. There was nothing to me, and it was probably a very quick read, to be honest, because I cared very little about it. But because I do this job, I've got to stay up on these things.
Right.
My first reaction was not one of like anger or anything like that. There were some opinions shared by Coach Harson that I disagreed with, but I was like, I mean, it's not defamatory in any way, I thought, towards Auburn or anything like that. I think I heard a lot of the same things that were kind of being said, vague statements about alignment and up and down and I think some of that stuff is probably true, but it is one of those things. I also don't fault him for taking the time to utilize relationships and connections that he has to share his side of the story. I would question whether it was the best thing to do. You juxtapose that to Gus Malzahn. Now, different circumstances, different success stories, all of that, who goes off into the sunset. And now you have a social media account from Auburn tagging him with the new head coach. And granted, the new two coaches are best friends, Hugh Freeze and Gus Malzahn, but you don't see that. The guy you just fired 3 years ago still being mentioned, connected with on certain level. I mean, I think that kind of speaks to it. And granted, the thing with Coach Harson's still very raw, very new and fresh. Wounds are still open, all that kind of stuff. I would have just loved to have seen him take the high road, so to speak, if there is a high road for him to take, and just kind of go off into the Boise sunset, as he already seems to have done.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think that's probably the frustration more with anything of it, from a lot of people is, it's very random at the end of May to go ahead and bring it up, or to go ever have this piece. It wouldn't surprise me at all either, if we're being completely honest, if ESPN went looking for the piece just to have something to write about. You know, at the end of the day, I recognize they are a business as well. We've talked about how hard it's going to be for us in the summer to find things to talk about.
Right.
They're having trouble on the college football side too. And especially when Auburn's doing so well, you know, might as well level out the playing field like ESPN usually does. So I think it's more than anything a generating clicks for them. But regardless, it's pointless. It really didn't need to happen. And the winner of all of it is ESPN. So best of luck to them.
and that's the thing about all this too, is, you know, Harsin doesn't come out smelling good on this one. Auburn's fans, some factions reactions don't come out well as either, as maybe rightfully so. Some of the reactions, not the degree to which it happened, but the type of responses. Your defense is to defend your university. And I've always said that, like, whenever someone leaves the university, transferring, someone getting fired, they're still part of the Auburn family to me to some degree, unless you burn the bridges. And when I read the article, I didn't read that into that, although I just would have preferred, we did this thing for 2 years. Let's just kind of, let's just go over here. Good job. And decide what you in. But the big thing is, if we are going to move on, then the other side of that has to too. There needs to be this constant animosity about this. It needs to stop. Move on. If you don't like the response that or the I guess response or engagement that Harsin's bringing back up about this and ESPN, just ignore it. Move on.
Yep.
But we have to talk about it because it was a big story in the Auburn thing this week. But all that being said, the great thing about this is we get to move on to something else. So does he. And hopefully we're already seeing the dividends being paid off from a change that we made for that. And hopefully that's going to continue for the rest of the season.
Yes.
But yeah, let's put that one to bed and move on. Next topic tonight. Let's talk about, you know what, let's do the most probably important thing on Auburn fans' mind at this moment first. I was going to do it as the last segment. I don't know why. I just kind of had it in my mind that way. But we've been talking a lot about Auburn baseball, and rightfully so. And tonight, just before we went live, Auburn baseball found out officially, I don't think this was a surprise to anyone, but they will be hosting a regional for the NCAA tournament. Not just for 1 year, but the second year in a row, first time ever being done in the history of the program. I continue to say it. If you ever question at this point in his career, Butch Thompson, I might come through the screen and slap you. I'm not talking to Austin. I'm talking to you, the viewer, the listener out there, because all this man does is know how to motivate, to guide, to lead, even in circumstances that don't seem all that great to start off with. And we are hosting yet again. Incredible turnaround and huge point of celebration tonight, Austin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think all that you said about Butch and how he's continually gotten this team ready. And I mean, no bigger than the run that this team is on right now. You know, like won 9 SEC games in a row, won their last 4 or 5 SEC series to get to this point, and just put it all together at the right time. They're one of the hottest teams in the country right now. And, you know, a month and a half ago, it's not even thinkable that this team's hosting, maybe not even going to the NCAA tournament. And now they're one of the top 16 seeds. We don't know their seed overall right now. We'll find out all that, as well as who they're playing, who's coming to Plainsman Park next week in the 11 a.m. show on ESPN2 Monday morning. If you're already listening to this,
I was about to say,
but you probably do if you're listening to this, actually. Unless Kyle goes into overdrive and has it out before 11 in the morning. But
good luck.
You don't have to do that.
I'm so tired, man.
So by the time you're listening to this, you'll know our opponents. But Auburn baseball is hosting a regional again. Kyle, you were there last year. I was there last year for a little bit. Just super fun atmosphere.
Yes.
Auburn dominated. And it has been an incredible run this year. And Plainsman Park is going to be unbelievable next week for sure.
Yeah. And so I think that's what we want to talk about in this segment, because the great thing is we know we're hosting a regional and we get to celebrate that fact. We know if you're able to, let's all come to Auburn. It's going to be a fun weekend, not just for Auburn baseball, but there's going to be some great baseball play. This is the best teams in the country. some of the best teams. Obviously, there's other regionals, but some of the best teams in the country are coming here to compete for the national title. Don't miss this opportunity. I had so much fun with this last year, and I'm so excited that I'm going to get to take part in it this year in some way. I don't know if I'll be in the stadium, if I will be doing my traditional watch from the parking deck thing. Probably going to be a little bit of that, maybe a mixture of the two. We'll see, but I will be there. Please come to Auburn if you can. The unfortunate thing is we don't get to talk in this segment about what the matchups are going to be like. But if you go to some of these websites that are very reputable in the college baseball space, you're going to find probably some decent estimations. They tend to find some of these smaller 3 and 4 seed teams, sometimes smaller, that are regional based. So I've seen Troy thrown in a lot. Sam Houston State's not super close, but it's in the South, at least, as Texas. I've seen, as far as the other big team, the number 2 seed that would be with Auburn, I've seen Duke. Any other ones that you've seen thrown in there, Austin?
Those are the ones I've seen the most. It's kind of like the NCAA basketball tournament. As we get closer, you start to see kind of people who pay attention to these things every year have an idea of who's going where. And it is a lot of regional based things. Like I think I saw Samford at one point. I think they'll be going to Tuscaloosa though.
Yep.
And so I definitely expect that kind of flavor of it. But it's exciting. You mentioned the best teams in the country. I mean, these are 64 of the best teams that have either won their conference or played well enough to get in all year.
Yep.
And, we'd be remiss to say if Auburn is one of 8 SEC teams hosting a regional, that's half. And so it further exemplifies the gauntlet that they've had to go through this year in order to get to this point. And so no matter what, it'll be a tough road. Auburn had to play, all their teams well last year during this regional, ended up blowing out a lot of them.
Yep.
But it'll be a great weekend for Auburn. It'll be really interesting to see when we know the overall seed, who they're paired up with the super regional. That's really what I'm interested in. Not to look too far ahead, because you got to win your regional to even think about hosting or attending a super regional. But all those matchups, it's going to be really interesting to break down.
So maybe like a great way to talk about this for the rest of our time in this discussion, since we can't really break down the matchups or anything like that, Auburn will be the number 1 seed, the host seed. So they in all essence should be favored to win. Another perspective, we don't anticipate them to be like the 16th overall seed, meaning the last number 1. So if you're in that scenario, you would think they're probably the most susceptible number 1 to be taken out, but they probably are going to be in the back half. That's a fair assessment, right?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm thinking like 10 to 14 range, maybe.
Yeah, I told Austin this pre-show, and I got on just trying to make sure we had all our ducks in a row, and saw someone post that Auburn was the 6th. I was like, that cannot be right. But then I started getting excited, and I was like, what? What? Did they watch how we ended out in the SEC tournament? But I'll take it. Either way, it's exciting to be doing this. So maybe real quick, what should fans anticipate, Austin, from your perspective at a weekend of baseball, not just for Auburn, but just college baseball on the Plains?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing, Kyle and I mentioned the parking deck. That's where I spent a lot of my time at the regional last year. My wife and I both went to the parking deck until, I think, was it a rain delay, Kyle?
Yes.
I believe it was. Yeah.
Yes.
Until the rain delay. And then my wife desperately wanted a Ben's pretzel. And so we said, well, let's just see if they'll just let us in during the rain delay. And then we'll back out real quick and go back to the parking deck. Well, we walked down there during the rain delay to get a pretzel, and not a soul was at the gate. And everybody was just like, whatever, at this point, you're all still here. You're more than welcome to come on in. And so we watched the rest of that game until I think it got delayed until the next day in the stadium. But you can expect a lot of people in the stands and a lot of people in the parking deck. And truthfully, if you can get tickets, that's great. But I don't think either one is a bad option to watch games at Plainsman Park. I love the parking deck. We've talked about the rules of the parking deck per se with Kevin Ives, as mentioned before on his Twitter account at AUPPL.
Oh, look at that. We did it together.
Check him out to be able to see those rules. And if you're able to make it, it's well worth it. If you can get down here and get the chance, and the fact that there's just playoff baseball, there'll be, obviously it's as a regional. So there's other teams playing, and there'll be other teams playing teams not named Auburn too.
Yeah.
So if you're a baseball guy or a baseball girl, it is more than definitely worth your time to be around the ballpark and around Auburn this weekend, because it'll be an exciting time.
Yeah, I would concur with everything you said there. This is one of those great opportunities to come enjoy Auburn, the campus, too, because you're not committed to football. Game day is like an event in of itself, right? Like you're kind of invested all in what's going on campus that day. With this baseball game, especially when your team's not playing, you have the freedom to come over and check out, especially from the parking deck and the outfield, to see what's going on. In a particular game that maybe you're interested in, or you can go to Toomer's Corner and get a lemonade, just like I did last year. And that's what I'll probably be doing. I'm just so excited being in Auburn and having a big maybe thing to focus on, but some leisure time as well is very nice. And my biggest hope for this is, we've heard this happen a lot. You and I talked about this in football season, even during this terrible year, how glowing of reviews we got from Penn State fans when they came to town. I want to hear those same stories this weekend from whoever it is, that we were competitive. This is our house. We're going to protect it, but let's be gracious hosts. Let's make them feel like Auburn is a place that's welcoming. You're gonna, when the game's on, we're going to treat it like it is. We're here for blood, but we're at the same time, when we're hosting, when we're showing people around town, let's show people what the Auburn family is about. And so that's kind of what I'm excited about. And of course, I'm excited for 2 years in a row that we have hosted a regional. How cool is that? Outstanding.
It's the best. And like you said, it's a chance to see Auburn too. It'll be the first weekend of June. School is out. My wife and I were with my sister-in-law and her boyfriend on campus today, and campus is as beautiful as ever, but it is a ghost town. And so if you want to see campus without the hustle and bustle and the town, it's a great time to do that too. So it's going to be a good week. It's one of those unique weekends in Auburn that'll be next weekend, but good for the team. And I can't wait to kind of hear about all the things and see all the things.
Baseball in the loveliest village in the plains. It just sounds like a good recipe to me. So
That's
let's
right.
enjoy it. Let's enjoy it this weekend. Let's talk about our final topic tonight. This one's just a fun one, and one that I kind of wondered if we could have enough fun with it, but I think we can. So we're gonna talk about it. We like to give you a full spectrum of Auburn Experience stuff here tonight, and this is going to be one of those out there things. But guess what? We get to talk about, at least for a second, Buc-ee's again. And I know so many of you are shocked out there that we would dare bring Buc-ee's up again on the show. But moreover, we are talking about this week on social media, other than the negative thing we talked about that's at the start of the show, Auburn creating a little bit of viral content themselves that spawned a little bit of fun stuff from other universities and even professional teams out there this week. I guess it was Recruit, Austin. Do I have that story right? It was Recruit.
Yeah. So I was going to give a little backstory. And peel the curtain back. This is my, how do I want to say it? This is my industry per se. My bread and butter is I love to graphic design, and I love to, especially around athletics. And so I've always paid a lot more attention to the creative side of college athletics more than probably anyone should. And so that one of those things I've noticed with the new staff at Auburn, since they've got here, is a big emphasis on this, and especially making these graphics that, they get sent to kids every day, all the time. A little more individual than normal. I've seen one where a kid, he came on a visit and it sounded like he talked with the staff about his mom gives him a blue Gatorade, some goldfish, and all these other things every time before his track meet, every time before his football game, so-and-so. The next thing you know, the kid's posting a graphic about a picture from his visit with him and his mom, and in the background, they've got a checklist of all the things he mentioned. So just a little more like, touch and feel and sentimental added to these things, where these kids are like, hey, that was really special. That's just not your run of the mill, I'm going to change your name out in a graphic that I'm going to get sent. It's not like some graphic where you post the jersey hanging above the stadium or anything like that. So I think it's really cool that they're putting a little more emphasis into this. And it sounds like this one that we're going to talk about, the Buc-ee's one, they sent to a kid that's in Texas, where Buc-ee's is, the biggest thing in the world. they said, we're the only SEC school with a Buc-ee's. And I think a lot of people saw this and didn't understand that it was for an individual kid from Texas, that maybe
Right.
he is a extreme Buc-ee's aficionado. But now, and everyone thinks Auburn is just, bragging about their giant gas station, which they should anyway.
All right. I mean,
But
come on.
I mean, and now, but it was for an individual kid. But like you were saying, this has sparked social media wars and social media, the best of the creatives out in social media from every school. I think it's hilarious.
See, this is the bet. This is when social media wins. Like, this is what should be. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying we can't ever talk about serious things on social media. We should. I mean, we should have a well-rounded conversation. But this is when I flip my phone on, find out what's this weird thing going on, and when I hear the backstory behind it, I smile and I just get further engaged in it, because this is just, it's good stuff. Auburn gets to show off their creativity with their staff. Again, I love that you brought that up. I continue to be amazed by whether it's graphic design, video guys. I just can't get enough of what the Auburn team's putting out right now and just having fun. And this is silly. This is just for a kid to use how he wants to as part of their recruiting process, but it still looks good. And the great thing is what, like you said, when people don't get, this is kind of just a gag for the most part, just for funds to use on a recruiting pitch. And then you get responses. And may I just go ahead? I think I've got it in the correct order. Let's see if I do. If I don't, we'll come back to it in a second.
Yeah.
Yes, right there. Lane Kiffin is like one of the first ones to respond. His team, his creative staff, with Chevron that sells chicken on a stick. They come out.
I love this.
It's amazing. Like, this is like the nuance of college sports that I love, and now what social media can do with this. But there you go.
Well, and I just would absolutely love to know the backstory of, did Lane Kiffin reach out to his creative team and say, this is what we should do. Let's do ours, but do, that janky Chevron down the street that only sells, because they're in Mississippi. So truly is what is there. And so he's like, let's highlight our janky Chevron that sells chicken on a stick. Or was it the graphic design team who had the audacity to say, hey, I'm going to make this as a gag against Auburn? Should I send this to Coach Kiffin? And either way, I would love to know how that played out, because this effect, I feel like Auburn's was one thing. And then once a prominent Twitter account or head coach like Lane Kiffin went after Auburn using the same idea, that's what started the ripple effect. And it went crazy from here on out.
And listen, as much as we were frustrated with Coach Kiffin during this coaching process, with whether he was taking Auburn seriously or not as a job, and shenanigans even after that, we've talked about some previous episodes about stuff related to him. See, this is why I'm still glad Lane Kiffin's in the SEC, because of stuff like this. And he's not the only one that got involved. We'll give you some other examples here in a second. Again, credit goes to the creative teams for putting this out here. They're the ones that have made these graphics. We're just sharing them out, but courtesy to them, we're letting you see some of these. Here's another example from South Florida, I believe, is this one. I can't see
yeah.
Now, I've chosen a couple, Austin, because I want to point out some incorrect statements about a few of these, or at least almost incorrect. The only one with the Publix on campus, I think we have a claim to that one.
I'm not going to say that's on campus.
Now,
I'm not going to count ours as on campus.
Now, listen, there are some campus buildings. So what we're referencing here, most of you that know what we're talking about, but just for those that don't, the campus borders are really the big ones, are College and Mag. And
Correct.
College Street, right there in front of Stanford Hall, technically across the street, would not be campus, but there are some campus buildings over there, which
there
would be, and it's kind of connected to it. So if so facto, it's on campus.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I saw this one too, the South Florida one that says the only school with an on-campus Publix. And I started kind of reading the comments, because there were some people who it looks like they really do have a Publix on campus. And it was like, somebody might not have done their research on this one.
Yeah.
But they use the Publix mascot, the little dinosaur. And that's, I think, what the biggest part about this is. It's not really how much of how crazy can your statement be, is how ridiculous can your graphic look. And on this Publix one, I see, for those that are just listening and not watching with us, I see a pub sub, a gallon of Publix lemonade, some cookies from the bakery, and as I mentioned, the Publix dinosaur mascot. That's pretty good.
That's pretty awesome. All right, another example here. This is I just kind of grabbed this random one. How big is Memphis campus? Like, do they have the pyramid over in Memphis as part of their campus?
But this one doesn't say on campus, so I think they're looping it into the city, because I've never been here, but I've heard about this at Memphis. The only school with a Bass Pro Shop and a pyramid, which is, that's a good one. I would be willing to bet, and I believe them, that they're the only one that has a Bass Pro Shop within a pyramid near their school.
Yeah, and this last one I think is one that we have a connection to. If I'm right, no, I missed on getting that one. But this is a major. So this is, you want to talk about Auburn like inspiring madness. You would think, okay, it's going to spread throughout the college level. This, folks, is the Seattle Mariners taking part in this. The only, what is it? I can't read the fine print, but the toasted grasshoppers with one of their players on top of it.
The only Major League Baseball team with toasted grasshoppers, which, people were making fun of Auburn for saying, are you really proud of having Buc-ee's? Is that really what you're going with? Is your thing? Is toasted grasshoppers really what we're going with Seattle as the thing that we're the only MLB team with? I don't know. That does not make me want to be like, oh yeah, I'm proud to be a Mariners fan.
So all because of these examples you just saw. One I failed to get, and I wanted to bring up because we could. I think it said it was on campus, so we could debate that a little bit. Georgia tried to say they had the only Little Italy.
Yeah, I got a problem with that one.
I got some issues with that one because we'll be having Little Italy basically on campus. It's kind of the same Publix. I will be having that this weekend, most likely. Now, just because they put that, how much money do you think Little Italy is going to make this weekend simply because they were mentioned on social media because of all this?
Oh, I think it'll be tons. And just because, if I remember correctly, it's Little Italy, but if I remember correctly, last year it was talked about when Auburn was winning by like 20 in that game. They talked about where they're going to go eat afterward, and we had rain and delays, and Little Italy is going to be one of the only places open if we have some rain delays next weekend. So Little Italy is going to make some money, but that Georgia one, you might be right. It might have said the only school with a Little Italy on campus. But if it said the only SEC school with a Little Italy, that is incredibly incorrect. And the guy who posted that was like, it says Little Italy's Pizzeria. That's not the same. No, it's the exact same thing. It's cheap beer, cheap pizza, and they're open. They never close. So those are exactly the same, my friend.
So there you go. Listen, Auburn creating magic. And when we talk about encompassing the Auburn experience on this show, this is the stuff sometimes we want to throw at you guys because this is just so unique. And I love it when Auburn becomes a prominent thing in other people's worlds. And this time we were a trendsetter in a sense. So hats off to the creative team at Auburn. Hats off to everybody else who jumped on board, another college group, creative teams and coaches, I guess, if Lane was involved in this, for kind of making something that was a little bit fun this week. And obviously, as we've talked a lot about, a time where there's not a bunch to discuss right now. But really cool. And of course, we're going to celebrate having a Buc-ee's. Who wouldn't celebrate? If you're not celebrating having a Buc-ee's near you, what's wrong with you?
I mean, look, it says the only SEC school with one. So you best believe if anybody else had one, they'd be celebrating it, but they don't. So just take your grits and go home.
I bet a certain school across the country, across the state would gamble a few dollars to have a Buc-ee's, down the street from them. So
I sure bet they would.
That's a fair bet, sir. All right, that's getting late now. You do those jokes much better than I do, so I just need to leave them to you. With that being said, that is episode 37. And thank you guys so much for joining us. If you want to connect with me, you can do so on social media via Twitter at Kyle Loomis 24 is my handle. Where can they find you, sir?
Austin G. Scott on Twitter and Instagram is where you can find me, and we can talk about all the graphics you ever want to talk about.
We can talk about that, toasted grasshoppers, gas stations, but we're going to be talking this weekend and enjoying a lovely little village on the plains with some college baseball mixed in. It is going to be a good time. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.
And we're out. Thank you so much, Austin, for hanging out with us. And I always appreciate hearing your creative side of things on those type of topics.
Look, I'm a nerd about it. That's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I'm a nerd about it, but that was fun to get to see and kind of be around this weekend, and we'll see if that continues. But just the hats off. Thanks, Dad. The hats off to the Auburn creative team, because I do think they're one of the best. They have absolutely incredibly talented people in video and graphic design and photography, and it's only gotten better. Truthfully, really, since Coach Freeze came on, and a lot of those guys I do like were hired by Coach Harsin and his staff, and so they're just pros, and they're really good at what they do. So hats off to them. Congratulations to them. I know they're feeling very proud to see kind of something they sparked go this wild. So
yeah, well, and it's Auburn people, so you know that. I mean, we start Amazon. What's not Amazon? What is it? I always forget that we run Apple. We started Wikipedia.
Yep.
We're a Hollywood Walk of Fame, a star actress. We are the greatest athlete of all time. If it's important, Auburn's had a hand in it, basically, is what I'm saying.
That's what we do. That's right.
All right, Austin, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Go hang out with your little babies and tell them we said hello.
Oh, I will. Pray they go to sleep. All right. Peace out.
See ya. All right, guys, thank you so much for hanging around with us. Would love to spend some time with you if you would like to hang around with me, just little me. I know it's not as fun without Austin here, but you guys are fun. So anything that you want to hit right now, please do start posting it in the comments. I will run back through some of your questions, but if there's something specific you'd like for me to talk about, if there's something you would like for me to mention, please do drop that right now. A couple things. Let me do it and do this part of the show. I want to give you an update. I don't have the graphics ready for you because it's been a busy weekend, as you can imagine. We spent some time with family and things like that. We this week have a very probably unique schedule, especially towards the end of the week. Tomorrow, we're planning on doing a live stream. Don't know what time yet. After the selection is made for what teams will be in the Auburn Regional, we'll probably do a preview live stream of that. Mid-afternoon is probably what I'm anticipating there. Or tomorrow night. We'll see. I got to look at what works best for me. After that point, we will have a Wednesday night show. And I see the question. I will address that in a second. A Wednesday night show at 8 p.m., normal call-in show. Please do that. What we're planning to do is I will be on campus this weekend. So if you're a Patreon member, a Booster Club member, you know you're going to be getting a lot of extra stuff from me in that app. So be tuned into that. But we are going to do live shows from there, but it's going to be a little tricky with when and how they happen. So just really stay tuned on social media, everything you can this week to keep up with what we've got going on this week. So it's going to be a fun, busy, interesting weekend to round out May and enter into June with some Auburn baseball. Okay, let me talk about a few things that you guys already posted right here. Corey, let me go ahead and address this. I got on and didn't even see a ghost floating around. What happened Wednesday? You see what happened was, so I'll just be honest with you. I even promoted it the night before on the show that we were doing a Wednesday night show. And I got into my office that evening and realized I never went live. No excuses. It just slipped my mind. And I have calendar appointments and things like that. What happened was I'm speaking for myself, but other content creators out there, I feel like, especially in the Auburn space, can maybe echo the sentiment. You're kind of wired a certain way to know certain things are coming that you produce, content pieces that you put out. And when that starts ramping down, your mind starts to almost, because it's been on overdrive for so long, that it slowly begins to shut down and start to forget things. And so my humblest apologies to everybody for Wednesday night show. That did not happen because Kyle didn't show up. Literally sat down in this office about 2 hours after the start time and then said, "What? I feel like I'm forgetting something," and pulled my calendar up and saw the missed live stream. So my humblest apologies for that. I do hate that because I love those type of shows. All right, so there's that. Let's see what else you guys have been saying. The AU graphics team is second to none. Always love what they come up with. Graphics team, the media team. Let's just call it that. The video podcasting team, because they do their AU Sports Network with Andy Burcham. I think Jacob Hillman is also part of that as well. Brad Law doing the interviews and stuff. The content they're putting out is second to none. Even social media graphics with Bucky's. WT, how many SEC schools are hosting a baseball regional? 8. And I think some people answered that for you right there. So 8. Yes. And then there are 16 total. So half of the field is SEC teams. Your Auburn Tigers are part of a dominant SEC presence in terms of hosting in this tournament. Going to be quite fun. Devin says, I didn't know about the toasted grasshoppers thing, but like I said, Seattle doesn't have much going on for it. Yeah, I saw that during the show. It made me chuckle a little bit over here off to the side. I love the fact that Auburn vicariously, because probably the reality is Seattle didn't see Auburn's post. They probably saw someone else's and someone else's and someone else's, that Auburn, but Auburn essentially caused a professional baseball team to come up with their own graphic for that. I just love that. We caused that. That's how relevant we are. Taylor Swift should come back to Auburn so we can say we invented music. I guess you're referencing when Taylor Swift did come to Auburn. I was in school when that happened there. And I remember the buzz on campus when she was still, I feel like she was still kind of newish at that point. And the sorority girls just running around campus trying to coordinate and figure out where she was and things like that. It was a wild time on campus. So I love excitement on campus, but I don't want that madness anywhere near us. No offense to the Swifties out there. Corey asked the big question: are we done with the portal, or do you think Freeze will go after a few more in the fall portal? Well, so let me answer. Maybe I think I can answer this 2 ways. In the immediate future, meaning from now until fall camp, is probably what the time frame is. I wouldn't say no, right? Because you just never know. But I would say that all needs, all spots have been. Austin and I did a segment last week in this show and talked about this, and this was kind of our statement. All needs have been met. All spaces, for the most part, have been filled. But what happens when someone gets into fall camp? And see, that's the thing, guys. I don't know the timeline of events for the transfer portal, so I'm probably not even speaking. I'm probably speaking ignorantly about this. But what spaces open up in the summer, right? Then you could see someone maybe wanting to make a transfer. And here's my guess: the transfer portal additions that you will see, if any, from this point, are not coming into. They're not coming into, and I hate saying this way because I don't want to take away from effort or deservingness to be here or whatever, but they wouldn't strike me as people that are coming in to contribute in a significant manner on the field. They are simply filling spots that are available, and depth pieces. That's my amateur interpretation of that. So to answer your question, Corey, immediately I'd say probably not. But when the summer continues, people start, decide, do I really want to be part of this culture shift, this staff, is there a better situation for me? If I got family stuff going on, someone leaves, spots open up, then maybe. But Coach Hugh Freeze has been very adamant and said, if there is someone who wants to be here and fits who we are and what we need, we're going to bring them in. It's as simple as that. Your boy Wilson, what do you think for regionals? You say Duke, Troy, and Fairfield. Angela, Miss Crotchfeld was saying here a second ago that, and I think she and I saw the same article. It was in that article was Duke, Troy, and help me. I'm floundering here. Sam Houston in the same regional. I would say I'm expecting probably Troy to be there. That feels like that regional small team they put with you. If there wasn't going to be a Tuscaloosa regional, I would say Sanford comes to us. Kind of happy about that. Sanford kind of gets us from time to time. Troy gives us trouble too, but I'm kind of happy Sanford's not going to be in the equation with us. So if that does happen. So to me, I think you're probably looking at a Troy being there. That Duke one, for some reason, feels right. Kind of worried about that Sam Houston pickup, though. I know that would probably be the 4 seed, but I feel like they're a traditional power, but constant presence in college baseball. So I don't know. Okay, here we go. Got another question here. I missed this one up here. Any thought on the SEC? Any thought that the SEC realigns with UT, OU when they enter the conference? I would think that the simplest idea would be to put Auburn and Alabama in the East. You would think. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm the absolute person that first said that, but we did a video when this first was announced almost a year and a half ago, and I proposed the same thing. And I was pretty sure I was one of the first ones out there prominently to start saying this. Move Auburn and Alabama over there, move Missouri over, everything's fixed, and go to a 9-game schedule. And you can keep divisions. I don't know that they're going to keep divisions. To me, there are so many options on the table here. Here's what I do know. What makes them the most money is what they're going to do. This realignment stuff, expansion stuff, it is all about money. It's why Texas, even though we have Texas A&M in the league, because there's such a big TV market, just because it's Texas, University of Texas, Oklahoma expands their reach. We can take this out a step further and start talking about who does Texas bring in after, the SEC bring in after that point. You can look up, I would look really hard at that West Virginia team out there. That's an arm out up into the Northeast-ish that they can't miss on. That's my opinion. Probably a lot of people disagree with it, but I would really look that. I would look at Miami. I would look at, I've always thought that Indiana fell out of place in the Big Ten. There's parts of Indiana that feel like more Southern to me, and I feel like they would be a good fit for us. But that's kind of, it doesn't really bring much to the table other than a TV market. I think they'll do away with the divisions. Devin says they have been talking about that for a while. There is a lot of smoke around the removing divisions. Divisions will change. That's what we do know. It has to, right? Because you're adding 2 people in the West, essentially. So divisions will change. Will that be a realignment of those, or will that be done with altogether? It's a lot of big questions out there. And I think as the days go by, it's going to get more and more complicated. Do you see the ACC collapsing and the SEC pilfering their schools in Florida and North Carolina? It kind of goes what I said earlier, WT. What makes them the most money is what they'll do. It really, what makes them the most money and what the Big Ten does for them to adjust. If the Big Ten starts sweeping up all of these Western Coast teams, it could change what I keep saying Auburn, SEC might have to do. Does it make sense to pick up Florida State, Georgia Tech, Clemson because of the rivalries? Yes. And we'd all love that from just the feel-goodism of it, right? Even throwing a North Carolina in there as well. But it doesn't really, the North Carolina one probably gives you the best market reach, but it's all about the money. It really is. It's not as simple as add the rivalries, right? At least that's my opinion of it. I would say Oklahoma and Texas would be Southeast. I wonder how far we would go before we would have to change the conference name. I don't know that you wouldn't say that they would be the Southeast. It depends on what you're talking about prospectively, right? If it's the Southeast as compared to the rest of the United States, then yeah, it is. I mean, Oklahoma is we broke that by bringing in Missouri. Missouri is not the Southeast culturally, logistically. It is why in the Civil War it was considered the border states, like the border war states. That Kentucky, West Virginia, I think like Indiana too was considered that. Maybe that's a little bit too far, but either way, I think we have pushed the bounds of the SEC already. So what's one more? I don't know that they'll have to rename it. The people that they're adding are still contiguous with each other, so you can always still tie it back to your roots. What I would like to see is if we did keep the divisions, move Oklahoma and Texas stay in the West, Auburn and Alabama go over to the East. You create a mega conference and call their side the Southwest Conference and the Southeast Conference. And there was an old Southwest Conference because really that's what it used to be. If you add Auburn and Alabama to that side, that's what it used to be, the old Southeastern Conference of Auburn, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and several other teams. South Carolina wasn't in the mix, and other teams aren't in the mix, but that would work in my opinion. I would actually love that because that recreates some of that old magic that has gone away. If we get North Carolina, we'd have to also get Duke. Yeah, and so, but all that does is bring in a rivalry and some stuff for basketball, sure, but yeah. Any chance Swanee? See, that's what I was thinking of. That's good. It's a good point. If I see any more teams come to the SEC, I would see FSU, Clemson breaking their contract to come to the SEC. Those would be if you're going to see ACC teams, those are the two most likely because Florida's here, because South Carolina's here. Yeah, it just they make the most sense in most aspects. They check all the boxes, in my opinion, other than expanding the conference brand and market share. They don't. Florida State maybe a little bit, but you've already got LSU and Florida that kind of cover the Gulf for you already. This just kind of connects it a little bit more. It's all about money. That is what will be determines everything. Good questions though. Good topics. Even though it's not direct to Auburn, it obviously affects us, and more than just football. Okay, a few more minutes here. If you guys have any final comments or questions about anything, please do post them right now. Would love to have some final quick hitting questions or comments, anything that you'd like to discuss out there in the comments right now. As a reminder, check out all the links in the description. If you can, go support our friends at Alumni Hall. We're going to be posting about them. They've got a 20% off sale going on right now, and use our link when we post it on social media. You can get you a nice deal there and help support us by supporting them. But some other ways are listed in the description. You can be a subscriber here. We're going to be doing a giveaway at 4,000 subscribers. You can be a channel member. It only costs you $1 a month, and it does help keep the lights on. You get icons next to your name, emoji access. You get, you're able to use the Booster Club at $1 a month if you use that link in the description, and get some perks for yourself as well. There's other things, but the biggest thing, the biggest help you can beat us is a couple things. Smash the like button when you're here. Drop a comment on all our videos that we do. Follow us on social media and invite a friend. Let's continue to grow this little family within the Auburn family. Final comments and questions. I still can't believe UCLA went to the Big Ten. Yeah, geographically, this makes no sense. Unless what looks like happening happens. What happens when they pull in Oregon? Happens when they pull in Washington. What happens when they pull in Cal? What happens when they pull in Stanford? What happens when they pull in BYU? What happens when they pull in Utah? You have now created, just like I talked about with the SEC and the Southwest Conference, the East and the West version of the Big Ten and whatever you want to call them. and you're still, I think we're getting to a point where we're basically merging all of these entities into 2 mega conferences and still going to have a handful of smaller conferences. I think we will eventually get back to that point, but right now it's about allocating power and money. That's all this is about. So, but yes, there are some things about it that don't make sense right now, but they're playing the long game here. WT charter members for the SEC: Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, UGA, Texas, Texas, Georgia Tech, UK, Maryland, Mississippi State, UNC, North Carolina State, Tennessee, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Washington, and Lee. There you go. All that's out there. And by the way, Duke was an SEC school in 1928. So yeah, there's some ties there. Yeah. Big 12 and Pac-12 are going to be sad to watch in a couple of years. Yeah. If the Big 12 is smart, they will snag very quickly the rest of the Pac-12, though, and whatever else they can, and try to salvage a coast-to-coast conference themselves. But it's going to be what it feels like is about to happen is 3 mega conferences, with 2 being the primary 2, the SEC and the Big 10. Like it or not, dread it, run from it, destiny arrives all the same. For those of you that know that reference, you're a good people. Renaming the Big 12 to the Legends League. All right. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight. Hope to see you tomorrow for our live stream. To be looking out for when that is posted, for when we do that. Not sure yet. And if not, Wednesday, we will have a Wednesday show. I promise. Will not let that happen again. That was on my bad. But other than that, thank you guys so much for being here. Smash that like button on the way out. And until I get to talk to you again, War Eagle.